North Atlantic Treaty would be the first thing that comes to mind, which declares an attack on one as an attack on all. If Putin attacks a NATO ally like he's attacking Ukraine today, we'd have no choice but to come to their aid, just like our NATO allies came to our aid after the September 11th attacks. That's why we're supporting and surging support now to Ukraine, to stop Putin from drawing the United States into a war in Europe and in the future. You know, it seems to me we should take a little bit of a step back and realize what a critical moment this was for the United States and for NATO. This is a historical moment. In the last 2 years, we've helped unify, strengthen, and expand NATO. Imagine if instead we had failed to step up now and support Ukraine. All those gains would have begun to unravel. The cohesion of NATO would have been weakened, and our national security would have been undermined without any question. You know, Putin started this war believing he could easily break the will of the people of Ukraine. When that failed, he changed his strategy a little bit, thinking we could break the will of NATO, break the will of the United States, break our will. Well, he's failed again. America stands with our friends. We stand up against dictators. We bow to no one, certainly not Vladimir Putin. Look, this bill also includes vital support for Israel. Just 10 days ago, we saw Iran launch over 100 missiles and drones at Israel. And because of them and other allies across the world, including from the region, no serious damage occurred. An unprecedented attack that followed years of Iran supporting Hezbollah, Hamas, and proxies of their own attack on Israel. They fund these guys. My commitment to Israel, I want to make clear again, is ironclad. The security of Israel is critical. It will always make sure that Israel has what it needs to defend itself against Iran and terrorists it supports. And with this aid, the United States can help replenish Israel's air defense and provide other critical defense so Iran can never carry out the destruction it intended with its attack 10 days ago. But at the same time, this bill significantly increases humanitarian assistance we're sending to the innocent people of Gaza who are suffering badly. They're suffering the consequences of this war that Hamas started. And we've been working intently for months to get as much aid to Gaza as possible. This bill includes $1 billion for additional humanitarian aid in Gaza. We're going to immediately secure that aid and surge it, including food, medical supplies, clean water. And Israel must make sure all this aid reaches the Palestinians in Gaza without delay. And everything we do is guided by the ultimate goal of bringing these hostages home, securing a ceasefire, and setting the conditions for an enduring peace. You know, there's more that this bill does, as you all know, in the press here, including providing for support to strengthen even further our allies and partners in the Indo-Pacific region, as well as humanitarian aid to places including Haiti, Sudan, and Somalia. But there's one thing this bill does not do: border security. You know, just this year I proposed and negotiated and agreed to the strongest border security bill this country has ever seen. It was bipartisan. It should have been included in this bill. And I'm determined to get it done for the American people. But I'll come back to that at another moment, another time. This is a reminder of what America can do when we come together, despite our differences. I want to thank everyone in Congress who made it possible, especially the bipartisan leadership. Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, Leader Jeffries, Leaders Schumer and McConnell. They don't always agree, but when it matters most, they stepped up and did the right thing. And I mean this sincerely. History will remember this time. History will remember this moment. For all the talk about how dysfunctional things are in Washington, when you look over the past 3 years, we see that time and again on the critical issues, we've actually come together. It hadn't always been easy. But when it's come time to decide to rebuild America, we did it with the bipartisan infrastructure law, which is just underway. When it came time to invest in our semiconductor industry and technologies of the future, we did it with the CHIPS and Science Act. And when it came time to stand with Ukraine and Israel and help the people of Gaza, we did that as well. At the end of the day, most of us, whether we're Democrats, Republicans, or Independents, believe that America must stand up for what is right. We don't walk away from our allies. We stand with them. We don't let tyrants win. We oppose them. We don't merely watch global events unfold. We shape them. That's what it means to be the indispensable nation. That's what it means to be the world's superpower and the world's leading democracy. Some of our MAGA Republican friends reject that vision. But this vote makes it clear there is a bipartisan consensus for that kind of American leadership. That's exactly what we'll continue to deliver. I thank you all very much, and now I'm going off to make a speech at the hotel I'm late for, and plenty of time to answer questions on this and other matters.
Can I ask a quick one on TikTok?
Mr. President, do you have a message for the protesters on campus?
President Biden not taking any questions after just announcing that he had just signed this comprehensive series of bills which will give immediate aid to Ukraine, Israel, Gaza. $1 billion, the president announcing, will be going to Gaza almost immediately, and so much more. I want to get right to NBC News White House correspondent Monica Alva and NBC's Ali Vitali on Capitol Hill. Monica, this was a speech the president clearly had been waiting a time to give, an important statement today.
Yes, months and months in the making, Jose. That's absolutely right. And the president really had a broad message here, which was this should have been easier. It should have happened sooner, but I'm glad that it's happening now. And he really framed this around the urgency specifically when it comes to the war in Ukraine and its ability to defend itself against the Russian invasion. He even spoke about these reports that there were cheers in the trenches in Ukraine when they were watching the House vote over the weekend to approve this. And speaking to specifically the air defense systems, some of the armored vehicles, things that Ukraine has said it really needs critically at this moment that will be able to start going out within a matter of hours. And he talked specifically about how some of those products are things that are even made in the United States right now when you're talking about Patriot missiles that are being built in Arizona, Javelins coming from Alabama, trying to really put this in the context that the national security priorities here aren't just about what's happening around the world, but are key to America's interests as well. And in defeating President Putin, he said that is the strongest and loudest message that the U.S. can try to send to its allies, that the U.S. does not walk away from its partners in moments like this. And so in addition to Ukraine, because there's all this money that now is also going to be going to Israel to also replenish some of their air defense systems that had to be used in that attack defending itself against Iran in recent weeks. That was a key priority. But there's also within this package a $1 billion pledge to go towards humanitarian aid in Gaza, which we know has been something the Biden administration would like to see stepped up. And they want Israel to really be a partner in providing and making sure that that gets distributed in the proper ways, which the president was pretty pointed on. In addition to that, there's money that goes to the Indo-Pacific as well. But I thought it was pretty notable, Jose, there's also a really key component in this bill the president signed earlier today on TikTok and a potential ban in the U.S. He did not get into the details of that, instead really focusing on the national security concerns of the foreign aid bill instead.
And Ali, the president reaffirming the importance of and how successful bipartisanship can actually be, but that those two political parties aren't only divided. Speaker Johnson has a division within his own party.
Speaker Johnson has a division within his own party, Jose, and frankly, so did Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. And he was calling those people out effectively, the more isolationist voices within his ranks, saying that finally passing this supplemental aid package is a sign of the role that America needs to play on the world stage, especially when it comes to backing up our allies in places like Ukraine amid this ongoing war with Russia. McConnell has been consistently clear-eyed on this. I think it's always been a striking point of contrast for him, the leader of the Republicans on the Senate side, and the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, who really had more of an evolution on the issue of Ukraine and foreign aid funding over the course of the last few weeks and months. We saw that, of course, play out over the weekend. The Senate couldn't have gotten to this point, and certainly the president couldn't have if the Speaker hadn't had that evolution and effectively put his job on the line to, in his words, do the right thing here. We'll see if that ends up having a longer tail when they come back to Congress next week. For now, Speaker Mike Johnson, for his part, is over at Columbia University, and we can talk about that, how he's spending his day in the larger landscape there. But for now, both sides celebrating a bipartisan moment of action that was weeks and weeks in the making here.
And Ali, I mean, it was interesting to watch that there is no doubt that politics has a part to play in everything that comes out of Washington. But the president mentioning the border bill that was not able to pass outside in the House. So he brought up the issue of immigration. And then the other massive part of this is the TikTok side of it.
Yeah, and both of those played really fascinating roles in how we even got to this place. On the border piece, it's why Speaker Johnson had such a tough time in the initial phases of this, because many voices in his conference were vocal about the fact that they wanted to see action on the U.S.-Mexico border before they had any aid or action taken across the seas, not immediately on the U.S. border. The reality of that, as you and I have talked about many times, is that the conservative bill that the House wanted to push out would never have passed the Senate, but the Senate had managed to negotiate a bipartisan border bill that would have given Republicans some things they wanted, Democrats some things they wanted, and certainly lent to helping on the border with the ongoing immigration crisis right now. That, of course, was scuttled because former President Donald Trump wanted to keep it as a live ball in the upcoming 2024 election. Republican senators and lawmakers responding to that, and so it's a bit of a red herring. And then, of course, on the TikTok front, that's something that actually sweetened this package, not just on the House side for Republicans, but for Democrats as well, and then certainly on the Senate side of this building. I think for anyone watching who's a big TikTok user, we need to point out that this is going to be tied up in court for a while, and there's an even longer clock on it after the courts have their way with it. So you can hold on to your TikTok app in the short term, but certainly knowing that this ban is coming has been critical this Congress.
Monica Alba and Ali Vitali, thank you both so very much. Really appreciate it. And now to our other big story of the morning. It's happening right now inside the nation's highest court. High-stakes arguments are underway in a major battle between the federal government and Idaho over its abortion ban with far-reaching implications. In Idaho, first trimester abortions are only permitted in the case of rape and incest with a police report, or if the mother's life is at risk. The Biden administration says that conflicts with federal law that protects a patient's right to emergency care, and that includes pregnant women who may need an emergency abortion. The Supreme Court allowed the state's ban to take effect when it agreed to take up this case. The effects of that ban already being felt by patients in a state facing a strained health care system. My colleague Laura Jarrett spoke with one Idaho woman who had to travel out of the state for abortion care when she learned her baby was unlikely to survive. She is now suing the state over its ban.
They pretty much gave me a 99% chance that this baby was going to not survive. They said, "We're surprised that you're still pregnant. Given the severity of what we're seeing on the ultrasound, most people would have miscarried by now." I was shocked. I was the one that brought up the conversation of what are my options, and they said, well, because we're in Idaho, there really aren't any for you.
Joining us now, NBC News correspondent Yamiche Alcindor, live outside the Supreme Court in Washington. Catherine Christian, former assistant district attorney from the Manhattan DA's office. She is